And away we go here. Another edition of Picks and Roll. All things 76ers and the NBA, of course, with our insider for the gambler, the one and only Mr. Sean Barnard. A little bit in the dark right now, dealing with some power issues over there in Jersey. I am Sean Brace. A lot to discuss. Sean, how we doing? You look great. I mean, a little dark, but everything's fine.
Yeah, hanging in there. Sat right down to get ready to record here, and immediately upon logging in, power goes out. So fighting through with the portable little Wi-Fi thing here. So doing my best. Still excited over last night's win, so can't complain too much.
That's right. And let's get right to it. Of course, as we just said, all things Sixers and NBA. We'll hit on the card that tonight on DraftKings Sportsbook. Plenty of games going off. But let's start with the beatdown. 44 points, 44-point victory. They were 5-point favorites. They beat the Lakers by 44. They scored a buck 38. Joel had a triple-double in the third. My goodness. You got players on the Lakers saying, yeah, they beat the S out of us. LeBron is just flabbergasted. Anthony Davis is dapping up Joel Embiid like they're boys. Dude, I don't know what's going on with the Lakers. I guess let's start there. Last night, more from the Sixers or more about the Lakers? Where do you go with that?
I still think more about the Sixers, that I think they came in there and took care of business. That was the largest point differential loss in LeBron James' career, 44 points, which is insane to hand that on the same night which he broke the NBA record for most minutes played on an NBA court. So a night that should have been celebratory in favor of LeBron really shifted the opposite. But to me, this was about the Sixers, that they came in, they took care of business, that it was another just mature business-like victory, and I'm very impressed by that. Joel Embiid picking up 2 fouls within the first 4 minutes of the game after all the chatter of Anthony Davis flopping leading up to it. Nick Nurse stuck with them. They stuck to the game plan and ultimately just looked to be the better team just about by every definition, every angle of things. So very impressive victory last night.
Yeah, Maxey went for 31 and 8. Pat Bev, people are saying that was the Pat Bev game. The bench was there again. It was insane to watch. That game was like they made a little bit of a push. I think the Lakers did at the end of the second, but even then, I was just looking at the live line, and it was just way too much for me to get involved. I said, you know what? I didn't take them at 5. I'm going to pass on that. I just was enjoying the game, but there was so much to like. Sixers shot the living daylights out of the ball from 3-point range, 22 of 46, 47%. That's always something that you bring up. So that had to bring, some excitement to your eyes to see the Sixers, A, shooting it from downtown, but B, making them as well.
Yeah, definitely. And they did just catch fire from deep, that they were hitting everything. And as a team, as you touched on there, connecting on 22 of their 46 attempts, Lakers only got up 28 3-point attempts. So out shooting them by that margin, that puts you in good space as a team. And there was a bunch of other numbers that were super positive too. Out rebounding the Lakers 48-32 by 16 boards there. Offensive rebounds 15-6. That was led by Joel Embiid. He's really shown another commitment to really just demanding the ball on the offensive boards. And we know he's big enough. We know he's physical enough when he is locked in. He's made that a much more conscious effort of late, which is just translating to this team. So very impressive. They're setting the tone all around, and they really dominated this game by every angle of the game, which is really impressive against a team like the Lakers with that caliber of star power. So very impressive victory. Probably my favorite win of theirs so far this year.
It was such a beatdown. They even had Jalen Hurts smiling. Right? I didn't think Jalen was going to be smiling until Vegas in February, but he was even excited about all the Eagles were in the building, of course, with the night off and coming off that big-time victory. A lot of juice in that Wells Fargo Center, and it's, these are the questions we have to ask ourselves is maybe we should have saw this a little bit more clearly leading into the game. We talked about this yesterday in the Daily Ticket, and, it's the NBA. I just expect all these games to come down to the wire, especially when you got LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the other side. But why? How did this turn so ugly? Like what? And then if we could revisit that game and the conversations we were having pre-game, what would be the difference? What's the change in your mind?
Well, I think I was excited for the Anthony Davis versus Joel Embiid matchup to see those guys go toe-to-toe. And it's amazing that Anthony Davis is a guy that's going to be a Hall of Famer, still a very good basketball player, even at this point in his career, which is a little bit past his prime. Joel Embiid is like several levels better than him as a basketball player by every definition. Like he really did dominate him in that game from a playmaking standpoint, from a rebounding standpoint, and from a scoring standpoint. And that even came with Davis's best attempt to get Embiid off the floor, get that Paul Reed versus Anthony Davis matchup that we were all waiting for there. And Embiid just stuck with it, that he stuck to his game plan. He did his thing. The playmaking, incredibly impressive by him. And Nicholas Batum, another guy that continues to be a huge point. And a box score performance isn't going to do him justice, but 10 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. He was responsible for all of the runs that the Sixers went on. They went on 3 significant double-digit runs, a 20-2 run, an 18-4 run, and I forget what the third one was, that all just changed the complete just outlook of the game. So that was the trio of Batum, Maxey, and Embiid being on the floor. And I mean, Maxey with a casual 31, 8, and 3. That's a regular day at the office for him at these days. So really impressive how it's all coming together. Both Maxey and Embiid in the top 11 for assists per game. So this team's really just getting it done by every level. I'm very impressed. For me, it was the Sixers team, when playing at their best, is significantly better than this Lakers team. I don't think it was their best effort last night, but that's still very telling to me.
It's the Lambo. Do we get a new nickname?
Yeah,
Did we get a new nickname for?
Yeah, that was from Darvin Ham last night, calling Maxey the Lamborghini. So from George Niang, the minivan, to Tyrese Maxey, the Lamborghini. A little bit of an upgrade there as far as guys that are getting the job done offensively.
Next up for the Sixers will be Wednesday. They're on the road against New Orleans, and Friday against Boston again. I didn't think we played Boston until like next year. I thought it was the 2 quick ones, and then all of a sudden you got this one coming up here, but I guess I was mistaken on that one. Again, so much to like. Speaking of Paul Reed, which you brought up, he did have an interesting quote in the post game. Didn't go exactly 100, but what did he say? 2 times 50?
Yeah, keeping it 50 times 2, Paul Reed said. So that is legendary stuff from Paul Reed. That's why we all love him. I don't think he meant to stir the pot in the way that it came out. Like even Darvin Ham being asked about a pregame, Nick Nurse asked about a pregame as well, which we touched on in the Daily Ticket. But Paul Reed made the quote, made the statement. He ultimately proved to be correct on how Davis played yesterday, very clearly trying to grift and draw fouls in a similar way to what Joel Embiid does. Not something I have a major issue with, but then Paul Reed to deliver the huge victory by the Sixers, then stand on it in the postgame. That's why he's the best, man. Shout out to B-Ball Paul. I'm happy he's still in Philadelphia. I love that he just kind of sticks with it and speaks his mind.
If you're the Lakers, I know that we really don't want to spend too much time there, but do you believe that you have what? I know it's just one game. You know, they play 82. I get it. But man, that was just so ugly to the point that it's like, yeah, you have to question a lot more than what's just on the court. What am I missing with the Lakers? Are we expecting anything from them this year?
Yeah, I haven't bought the Lakers hype going into the year. That I think kind of best case scenario for me is I see this Lakers team ultimately ending up in like a 6 seed kind of territory. And I think they do need to make a move if they want to be considered legitimate contenders. We know all the Zach LaVine buzz, the big names popping out at beginning to as the trade deadline starts to loom. I think the Lakers should be buyers that if they want to be real deal contenders, and when LeBron James is still on your roster at this point in his career, you should be looking to do this. So I think the grand plan was always for LeBron James to kind of pass the torch to Anthony Davis. I don't know if he's ready to carry that burden, and it's unfortunate that that's just the reality of things. Even last night, a game where I thought Davis played fine, but 17 and 11 is just not going to get the job done when you're asked to be really a number one star. And LeBron held with 0 rebounds last night, 18 points. Austin Reeves was the guy that's kind of been looked at as their third star, and it's kind of one of those situations where the pendulum has swung too much on the Austin Reeves hype, where it's now to the point where he can't quite deliver on the shoes that he's asked to fill. He finished last night with 29 minutes, 12 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Got a little scrap with Pat Bev there, which I did love seeing that. But yeah, I guess the answer to your question is I don't think this Lakers team just has enough talent to be considered on the same level as a lot of the contenders.
Of course, the Lakers hype is always going to be there. They're 9-1 to win the West. That is good for 4th right now behind the Warriors, the Suns, and the Nuggets. Again, as ugly as the Clippers, they had a couple good wins there last night, really ugly. I'll take the Clippers over the Lakers. I don't know if you would disagree with me on that. Timberwolves, I'll take the T-Wolves over the Lakers. Mavs, most likely taking the Mavs over the Lakers. Sacramento Kings, absolutely taking Sacramento. If OKC and the Lakers played a 7-game series, who are you taking?
OKC. I believe in this OKC. And Again, this is far past the best version of LeBron James, still very good, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best player in that series, that he has elevated to that level at this point in his career. I believe in Shai. This Thunder team is perfectly constructed as far as guys that mix with each other, play off each other, and that's what we're not seeing with this Lakers team. Is there still feels like too much of there needs to be hero ball at times. There needs to be guy going out and getting their own buckets. There's not enough as a team construct to the way that you would hope to see at this point. So yeah, I have some real concerns about this Lakers team.
Talk to me about when Oubre returns. Of course, what we were able to see from him and the games that he did play, there was a lot to like. What's something that we've learned about this Sixer squad in Oubre's absence?
I'd say, well, for starters, they need him. That I think he has a bigger role on
Hmm.
this team than I expected.
Good
I think
answer.
going in, yeah, they need him. Um,
Yep.
well, I'm curious to see what his role is, because he was obviously a guy who was playing very well, had ascended to the starting role, had earned those minutes, and was playing to the point where I couldn't see that they take him out of that. Now that we've seen Nicholas Batum kind of solidify his role with the starters, I'm curious if they try and put Kelly back in. I would think he at least starts the return off the bench. And I've thought like the ideal role for him is as a six man, as a guy that can be a microwave scorer, go in, make some automatic offensive impact. I also think there's a world where Nick Nurse tries putting Oubre back with the starters and benching D'Anthony Melton. And then you're looking at a lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, Nicholas Batum, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. That's a lot of size, a lot of athleticism, and really just a different flavor of basketball that we've seen from the Sixers. So it's another key piece that is going to matter on this team. I think that Nurse is going to finally have all the tools to begin to experiment with these guys when Kelly returns. So I'm looking forward to him being back on the floor, and it does sound like it's going to be sooner rather than later.
Anything from Nick Nurse after the game talking about what Paul Reed had to say? Was there anything that took that up another notch in the post game? Anybody bring it up at all?
I don't believe so. Not that I heard. The biggest concept that they were really harping on post game was Tyrese Maxey getting after it in the first quarter. It's been a little bit of a storyline of Maxey, and this is kind of a natural point guard thing where you generally try and let your teammates eat before you do. That your focus as a playmaker to start, and then kind of can get your own scoring opportunities down the stretch. I think Maxey's taken that a little bit too far. He's had a couple games this year where he's had 0 points in the first quarter, and he always has his run where that changes. But last night was a night where he was in attack mode early on. Nick Nurse said that Maxey had mentioned that earlier in the day, that he wants to be in attack mode from the opening whistle in that night. And Nick Nurse has a funny reply where he's like, I tell you that every day, man. Like, that's what I want to see from you. So cool that we're kind of seeing this continued growth in mindset. To me, that was the biggest takeaway from post game. But yeah, it was a full out beatdown last night.
It really was. And as I said, next up, you got New Orleans on the road. And when you talk about New Orleans, your mind automatically goes to what type of Zion performance you're going to get. Now the Pelicans are 509-9 at this point in time, home 6-4 this season. Sixers, I don't see a number yet, but they should be favored on the road, correct? Would you make them a favorite tomorrow?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think they are. And they do have a tough stretch with the Pelicans and the Celtics, but then things do get a little easier from there on out. That then they play the Wizards back to back against the Pistons, the Hornets, and then the Bulls. So 5 fairly winnable games there. So it's get through these next 2 and then take a little bit of a breather. And I do think a lot of the numbers which people are throwing out as far as defensive rating, offensive rating, we're going to see those all pretty balloon up pretty highly there.
And I'll tell you what, when it comes down to the Pistons, last night was able to catch a little bit of that Wizards and Pistons game, the battle of the 2 win squads.
Yeah.
You feel for Cade Cunningham. He's an absolute beast. And he was distraught on that bench, but that's just a bad organization right now. Both of them terrible organizations. But I think you could see a little bit more of a glimmer of hope for the Detroit Pistons. Not going to spend too much time on that game, but that was one that stood out to me. Of course, from outside. All right, anything else from the Sixers perspective from last night for you, Sean?
I will give Pat Bev a little love real quick. That one of the cooler takeaways for me is I think Pat Bev's everything we wanted PJ Tucker to be and more. And I mean that from both an on-court and off-court standpoint, that I think the way that he's so vocal and the way that he leads is important to this team. That Joel Embiid, not the most vocal leader. Tyrese Maxey, still very young, that they need that on this roster. And he's very comfortable speaking his mind for whoever will give him the platform to do so. And then on the court last night, it was cool to me that Pat Bev has not shot the ball well at all so far in a Sixers uniform. And the Lakers made a clear, conscious effort to completely sag off him and disrespect him from 3. And he said, you know what, you're going to do that? Well, I'm going to shoot it. And he shot 4 of 8 from 3 last night. including one step back, which if Pat Bev's giving you step back 3-pointers, the game's over right there. So I think everyone needed to see that, Pat Bev included, that like he can put the ball through the hoop when it needs. And I just liked it from a mindset standpoint of him saying like, if you're disrespecting me, I'm going to punish you. And I think that was cool all around. And he's going to be an important part of this team for sure.
That when Morris is going 4 for 5 from downtown too. It's a
Oh, yeah.
wrap.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Paul Reed even got in the mix a little bit later with the one. Mo Bamba. Yeah, speaking of, as I'm looking at the box score here, I saw you put a tweet out asking, maybe Nick Nurse needs to get him a little bit more run. Looks like he's capable. You want to bring that up a little bit more or take us through your thought process on that tweet?
Yeah, the Mo Bamba situation is very weird. That it feels like every time I've seen him play, there's been things that I've really liked, but it feels like every coach he's ever played for has full out hated him. I understand that there's some motor issues and he's not like the most locked in at times. He's really a mystery as far as his plus minus and the advanced stats look really good, but just he never receives an opportunity. Like this is the same guy. I've seen him score 37 points against Joel Embiid in a Magic uniform. That's still him. He's 7 feet tall. He's got a legitimate jump shot, a good shot blocker. There's no reason why he shouldn't be a serviceable backup center. Now, I'm not pounding the table saying that Mo Bamba has to play, but to me, it's been very telling, like the lack of opportunity he's been given so far, especially like him not playing against the Timberwolves when Joel Embiid was out. That was the matchup that I had circled of like, okay, Bamba is really in the doghouse here because Nick Nurse obviously went to Marcus Morris as the starting center to go to a small ball option there. I understand the logic of trying to play some 5-out basketball, space the floor against a team with Rudy Gobert, but Bamba not receiving an opportunity in that matchup to me was very telling. But last night, like Bamba looked good again. He had 2 dunks. He had a 3-pointer that he knocked down, made a play defensively. He had 1 poster on a missed free throw that he came in and dunked. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very confused by the Mo Bamba situation. I would like to at least see him share the floor with Paul Reed and see what that looks like. Who knows what happens moving forward? But yeah, I'm confused by the Mo Bamba situation as a whole.
All right, and then quickly moving on to the other games that we saw last night. One that is important for us. The Pelicans ended up losing to the Jazz 114-112. Pretty good game there.
Yeah.
And as I said, just going down the box score there, Zion went for 26 and 35 minutes played. Brandon Ingram 25. Pretty good squad there. Valanciunas going off of there. I finished with 14, but still. Good squad. It's going to be a tough one to go and get on the road in New Orleans, especially with Boston on the next side of that. But one other thing from the Sixers perspective, in-season tournament, they're still alive. I thought they were eliminated, Sean.
Yeah, technically they're eliminated from winning their group, but they do an outside shot at the wild card. For that to happen tonight, they need the Charlotte Hornets to win, who I believe are 12-point underdogs in their matchup. Also need the Atlanta Hawks to win. They're also underdogs against the Cavs, but I do kind of like them to win tonight. Chicago Bulls, also significant underdogs against the Celtics. They need the Bulls to win. They also need the Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks to win. So 5 teams, several of them big-time underdogs, double-digit. It's not likely, but there is an outside chance. So who knows? If you want to get wild and root for it, why not?
Just just burn the red court. No one liked that. Nick Nurse said that half joking they lost because of that court. It's time to move on from the in-season tournament. It wasn't our year. Let's just put it that way. But hey, they're still alive. They got a sliver, a snowball's chance in hell to move on here. But we'll see what happens there. All right. Also, from real quick last night before we move on to tonight's games. The story of last night was what the hell went down in LA. All the players that the Denver Nuggets were missing, and yet the Clippers still lost that game. The Denver Nuggets. Look, if DeAndre Jordan is going off and he's a reason why, come on, man. That's sad. What happened last night? The Denver Nuggets outscored the Clippers 36-16 in the fourth quarter. What in the heck happened, and what do you do if you're Ty Lue after that performance?
Yeah, I mean, the DeAndre Jordan success brings up the question of, is Nikola Jokic a system center? And no, I don't actually mean that seriously. But I was very surprised that DeAndre Jordan had that in the tank.
Yeah.
And as far as like the Clippers as a whole, Ty Lue's got to put the big boy pants up and just kind of step up and coach this team as if these guys aren't these superstars and have the egos and the names attached to them. Like Reggie Jackson getting a crunch time bucket in one-on-one isolation with James Harden as the primary defender, that can never happen. You can never let James Harden be the guy on an island. And I mentioned that the Sixers, one of the biggest takeaways for Harden not being here is how much I think they've improved defensively. That's an issue the Clippers are going to have. And I don't think either Kawhi or Paul George at this point in their career are the guys that have the ability to kind of make up for deficient defenders in the way that they once did. James Harden kind of quit on that play, and we've seen this before. That can't happen from a just personnel standpoint on having him in that situation, but it's still frustrating. Harden was kind of treading upwards toward finding a way to fitting in on this team. I thought last night was a huge step back, that there's still way too much your turn, my turn basketball. There's just a bunch of mismatched pieces that aren't being played the right way. So to me, this kind of falls back on Ty Lue of you need to get it in order of finding guys to get in the right spots, even if that means eating into each of these guys' minutes and eating into each of their egos for what they're being asked to do. Because right now it's not working. And last night was probably the most pessimistic I've been about the Clippers thus far.
You have to be after that one. And, it's crazy. I love it. All these maniacs out there that I follow on social media when it comes to sports gambling, we're all over DeAndre and Reggie Jackson returning and firing on that. So I'm happy to see everyone getting rewarded on that. I just can't believe the final score. I just was blown away being able to tune into that game in the first half. And I thought the Clippers looked pretty good. And in the back of my mind, I'm just going, yeah, Denver's not going to have the horses to compete in the second half, but that wasn't the case. And Michael Porter Jr. only finished with 8. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
it literally came down to DeAndre Jordan and Reggie Jackson, and that was it. And that was it. It's just, look, the Clippers have been able to win a few games, right? They've looked good in some stretches. So I'm not going to say it's the end of the world here, but man, that's a loss that's got to send shockwaves through your system. Hopefully it does, but who knows with that squad.
Yeah, and I think they're a team that it's gonna be they're still gonna find a way to make the playoffs and be in the mix, but they're gonna be very matchup dependent on what their outlook is. That I do think there's a world where they get a favorable matchup on a team that they can face off with, squeak by the first round, and then see what it looks like in the second round. But there's also a world where like all this happens and they're a first round exit in the playoffs, and then there's some really tough decisions to be made in Los Angeles this offseason with each of these guys entering free agency, a couple player options in the mix. I believe Kawhi has one. But the bottom line is like there's some tough calls to make, and you have a full season to figure it all out. But for James Harden, clearly having his eye on a max contract, you are not getting one with the way you're playing right now. And some of it's been him trying to fit in too much. I'm curious that if this kind of begins to transition to more of a James Harden looking offense. There's been moments where it has. Last night, I thought was some regression in that. So yeah, the Clippers are not on the same page as a team. It's going to be a whole process to get them there. I'm not counting them out for the postseason, depending on who they face. But yeah, it's been ugly, and I expect there to be some real ups and downs for the next couple weeks.
All right, Sean Barnard, picks and roll here on a Tuesday. Let's discuss a little bit of some of the games we got on tap. DraftKings Sportsbook, 8 games on the slate here. All NBA in-season tournament games, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's right.
Did I lose you? All right, so you're
I
back.
hear
Boom.
you. It is in-season
3, 2,
tournament
1.
tonight.
Yep. All right, all in-season tournament. Now, with that being said, Sean, from the gambling angle, is there anything there? Like from a little bit of a desperation from teams, maybe it might be a little bit more important to, let's say, the Chicago Bulls versus the Boston Celtics. Do you think any of that matters right here, right now?
Yeah, I do. I think that each team has some kind of unique circumstances that play into it. The Knicks are a team that are kind of in a much must-win situation today, that they technically have a chance if they don't win, depending on what happens in the Milwaukee matchup. All these situations are a lot more convoluted than I kind of expected when I tried to dive into it and get prepped for this. They're all very dependent on each other. So for the teams that are in the mix, the simplest answer is win your game and put yourself in the right position there. The Knicks are a team that I've circled for this. Atlanta's a team that I think it matters to a ton tonight. Milwaukee and Miami's interesting as far as if Miami wins, that makes it a 3-way tie between Miami, the Knicks, and the Bucks, which then brings in a whole number of complications. So there's a lot. It's a lot more complicated than I honestly expected it to be. But a lot of these teams that if you're looking at a game, I definitely would take into account the standings in the in-season tournament, because this does matter to teams more than I think a lot of people were expecting it to.
Look, I love the card tonight. You know, Bucks and Heat, as you brought up at 7:30. DraftKings showing the Bucks 3-point favorites, 229 is your total on that one. Hawks and Cavs, that's a 4-point spread for Cleveland at home. No LaMelo with Charlotte, so I'll pass on that game. Don't really care about the Bulls and Celtics too much. Big time spread, 13.5 there. Raptors and Brooklyn, interesting game. They always seem to battle. That's a 2-point spread for Brooklyn at home. The two big ones, of course, for me, probably you as well, OKC and Minnesota. 3-point spread for Minnesota at home, 229. That game's going up at 8:10. And then at 10 p.m., Golden State and Sacramento, who I believe they've played a few times already this year. I think they opened up the season, if I'm not mistaken. Sacramento, a 1.5 favorite at home, 235.5. I think Draymond's returning. They got some issues going on Golden State. Wondering what's going on with Clay. Definitely doesn't look the same. Again, we've probably heard this before. We probably had this discussion before. But at the same time, it is another year. It's another year older for these guys, and Father Time's undefeated. So don't know where you stand on that one. But what's a game that you're looking at that you circled the most here?
The Atlanta Hawks and Cleveland Cavaliers, from a gambling perspective, what appeals to me most today. I like the Hawks to get that upset. I like them on the money line at plus 150. And my favorite play of that as a whole is the Trae Young points. You can get that at 26.5 at minus 130. I even like the alternates moving all the way up to 30. He's played very well against Darius Garland traditionally. He's only gone under the 26 or the 27.5 was the number I was looking at. He's only gone under that once out of the 5 matchups that they've had. Been playing some really good basketball this year. He looks like the offense is more catered toward Trae Young. Last year, it felt like they were really trying to make the DeJounte Murray and Trae Young combo work. It now looks like it's accepted. Like, Trae Young is the lead guard on this. DeJounte will still get his moments and will have his opportunities, but Trae Young's the guy, and he's been playing really good ball, shooting the ball well, getting the free throw line as he always done. So I like that number at 26.5, and I do kind of like the Hawks to get the upset here.
All right. Yeah, 30.5, 30 points, 30 plus is plus 125 for Trae Young. So I think the odds makers are kind of eyeing you up on that one as well. Anything in Golden State as far as what's going on being discussed? Clay had a little back and forth with a reporter out there. It's like, what, you want me to be? It was very awkward. And you could tell Clay was definitely bothered by it, even though he was like, I don't care, clearly did. From that standpoint, do you think they make changes starting lineup? Do they have to, or is it way too early?
The guy that I'll say is disappointed me the most on Golden State has been Andrew Wiggins so far. That he's looked like atrocious this year, and that's a guy that is very much a glue guy on their team as far as can create when he has to, dominates on rebounds, does a lot of the little things, and he really just has not been good this year. I think that's the source of a lot of their just disappointments thus far. I don't think they make any changes yet. They're still figuring out working in Chris Paul to that rotation. Draymond's been out, as you mentioned. So there's been some other issues kind of plaguing things. So I think they stick with it. The bottom line is what Steph Curry wants, Steph Curry gets. I do think they're focused on creating one more run, at least around him. So I'm curious what that looks like in the long run. But for this year, I think they're another team that's just looking at, give me a ticket to the dance, and then I'll make it happen once I get there. So they're not a team that anyone's going to want to face in the playoffs. I still trust them to get there. And I think that it's just some growing pains for now. It's going to have to go on a little longer for me to be super concerned with it.
The Kings, and they've already played 2 times. They're 0-2 already in this early season against the Golden State Warriors. Last time they played was on November the 1st. Golden State got them by a point here. The Kings are 3-0 in the in-season tournament, and they're, of course, attempting to sweep the West Group C. Pretty difficult run already. They'll beat the Thunder, the Spurs, and the T-Wolves in that run. So I kind of like the Kings here. Any thoughts from the gambling's perspective tonight?
Yeah, I probably lean the Kings as well. I'll go Kings as well. But I think they've just been playing. They're a team that does get it from the standpoint of playing with each other, playing within the system. Domantas Sabonis is a guy that's very fun for me to watch personally. I kind of like his player combo at 40.5. He's a triple-double threat on an every-night basis. They run a lot of their half-court offense through him with a ton of DHOs, ton of off-ball motion to play off him, and he can deliver with making some pretty high-level passes there. So I've been impressed with Sabonis. I do buy this Kings team. I think they're taking a little bit of a step back from last year, but they still got all these same pieces in place, and they're kind of still playing some really good hoops while the Warriors are still figuring out. So good opportunity for them to strike while the iron's hot.
All right. Looking forward to tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch some of these games play out. We'll see if these teams put a little bit more emphasis because of the in-season tournament. But so far, thumbs up across the board. I know Nick Nurse was speaking highly about it, just had some fun with the floor, and I would imagine we'll see a different colored court next year. I think that's pretty much a lock on DraftKings Sportsbook. All right. Final thoughts before we get out of here. I wanted to hit you with one little difficult question, if I could. The whole Josh Giddey situation and everything that's going on. Where are you on this? Because of course we know it's hot and it's all over social media, but that's it, right? It's not anything else but social media. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that just because that's it, nothing should be done. No, I mean, maybe you give the kid a week off and you investigate, but we know how this works with all the the players association. Of course, legally speaking, you can't be addressing this stuff just off of a social media. Like, that's my thing about social media more than anything, is like, people that are in it, they know. But there are plenty of my friends that have no idea what's being said, no idea what's being put out there. Josh Giddey, they don't know anything about this whole ordeal. And I know that Malika Andrews is catching heat, which is just ridiculous, about not talking about it. Like, man, she got producers, she got higher ups. Come on, man. Where do you stand on this whole Josh Giddey situation right now?
Yeah, it's complicated. It sucks. I don't think anybody, the NBA or the Thunder, have done a good job of handling it thus far. I'll say, like, I've seen a lot of the comparisons with the Ja Morant thing, and the biggest difference to me there is the Ja Morant issue was point blank, clear evidence right in front of us. That the issue was him flashing the gun on Instagram Live. Everyone saw that happen. The Josh Giddey thing here, everyone's still trying to figure out what exactly did happen. So I do think it's a little complicated with that. The NBA is absolutely right to investigate. I don't think it's the right decision for him to be playing right now. I would have much rather, I think it would have been the right move by the Thunder to get in front of this and take him away from the play, at least while things figure out. And there's a lot of stuff circulating out there. Like, I know there's another video coming around now of Giddey and this girl in a bar together. And like, again, like, not that would make this okay if she's still underage, but if he met the girl in the bar, it's a very different story to me on how this all goes down. So I think the details of the situation are going to dictate what happened. Obviously, if she's underage, there's a real issue here. So I think the NBA is doing the right thing investigating. I'm curious what they find in this. Only Josh Giddey truly knows what happened and how much he knew and when and all those things. But he has not done a good job. The no comment answers, I don't think, are the way to go about this at this point in time. So, yeah, it is a mess. It's disappointing that he's put himself in this situation, and he's a guy that could see his career change for the worse if this comes out wrong. So very disappointing all around. I hope the NBA does release a statement and does their due diligence with figuring it all out, but a difficult situation as a whole.
Yeah, and there was a situation that took place with the Tampa Bay Rays this year with Wander Franco, a heck of a ball player. I feel like there was a little bit more concrete with that. Like you said, there's just a lot of guessing right now. And again, a lot of speculation because of social media. So I'm not trying to say it didn't happen. I just think we need a lot more answers before we start calling people out and just posting these ridiculous. Des Bryant, like, dude,
Yeah.
go get a life. Go get a life. Like Malika Andrews, and let me tell you right now, when she did what she did for the NBA draft, when she brought up Brandon
Miller.
Miller, thank you. When she brought up the whole situation with him and the gun, it's the NBA draft. And I had no issues with what she did in that. It was a quick little jab. She brought it up. It's definitely important. I mean, come on, man. This is draft day. That was a huge deal. I mean, he almost didn't play in the tournament. He almost didn't play for Alabama down the stretch, and they were the overall 1 seed, or definitely a 1 seed. I don't know if they were overall, but still, I mean, that was a huge deal. So she did nothing wrong. People need to get a grip. Again, social media, just a problem all the way around. Des Bryant, shut up. Go touch grass, as they say.
And that was another situation with Brandon Miller where he played through while like the legal process played itself out there, that he did not remove himself from the court or was not removed by the university or the NCAA until there were official findings. And I don't think he ever actually removed that. There was no cause for suspension due to those charges or anything with it. So that was I guess a cleaner comparison than compared to like the Ja Morant situation. I understand like the people throwing around the double standard. I don't think the Thunder, the NBA, are handling it in the right way by allowing him to continue playing. But I do think this is a more complicated issue than a lot of people are giving it credit. And I understand the mindset of waiting until the full findings are out before making any sort of decision. And it seems to be that's the direction they're going.
A little extended here on Picks and Roll with Sean Barnard. Fantastic stuff. Final thoughts, Sean, before we get out?
Yeah, it's tough to feel bad about the Sixers right now. So feeling good about the Pelicans and the Celtics these next two games. It'll be nice for them to have a couple games to coast a little bit against the Pistons and a little bit of the worst caliber of NBA teams there. But yeah, it's all about the Sixers right now. The way they're playing is impressive. The way that they are playing, I don't see a team coming in and beating them right now. I hope it continues moving forward, and can't wait for the return of Kelly Oubre.
Excellent stuff. Be sure to follow Sean at Sean_Barnard1. That is the number 1. And all things picks and roll available on our website at foxphlgambler.com. Good luck on all your plays, and we'll catch up next time on Picks and Roll right here.